Most of you that are a fan of this channel know that my goal for my investing portfolio, it is passive income through dividends. Today, I want to talk about dividends and more specifically dividends and taxes. And the reason is because a few days ago, one of my favorite channels, in fact, it was the channel that got me into doing YouTube, Everything Money, put out a video talking about the ETF SCHD. In this video, the host Paul goes over several things about ETF, such as how it hasn't performed as well as the S&P 500 and how dividends aren't free. Well, I do agree a lot with what he says. In fact, if him and I were in the same room, we would agree on like 90% of things. However, there is one statement where Paul is not entirely correct, and that is the taxation part when it comes to dividends. And for anyone watching this that is a fan of Everything Money, let me just reiterate something. I initially said, I am a fan of Everything Money, guys, and they were my inspiration to starting a YouTube channel for investing to begin with. In fact, the whole concept of free cash flow, I learned from them. So this is not a jab at them, not a jab at the video. In fact, all I want to do is just go further into detail about that one part that Paul didn't go into detail that much. And I'm pretty sure he knows it. However, I want to go further into detail because it is a lot more nuanced than what Paul just makes it out to be. So of course, the link for their video will be in the description below. Please make sure to watch it in full so that way you get the full context, and of course, all their credit goes to them. So with that said, let's take a look at what Paul actually said in their video.
It absolutely is not only not free money, it's also not even tax efficient. You're going to pay taxes again. This is what I always say in our videos. There are 5 things you can do with free cash flow. You can pay a dividend, buy back shares, pay down debt, reinvest back in yourself, like buying and putting more plants and equipment, hiring more staff, etc., or make acquisitions. Even though I love dividends, it's absolutely the last thing a company should do with their free cash flow.
When Paul says dividends aren't free, he is 100% correct. Dividends come from the company's free cash flow, which is cash from operations less your capital expenditure. So when a company pays out this dividend, they are taking this from their own cash flow and giving it to you. This halts them from actually using this money for doing things like acquisitions, growing the company, lowering debt, etc., etc., etc. In fact, one of them is also buying back shares, which he does go into this video a lot. And I would actually like to get into this in just a few minutes. Now, regarding the whole taxes and dividends, he does mention this. However, it is a lot more nuanced, as I said, than just dividends aren't tax efficient. And you will pay taxes again. So let's dive into this just a little bit further. First, regarding dividends and taxes, we must differentiate between the 2 types of dividends, which are qualified and non-qualified, because each follow different rules when it comes to taxes. Beginning with the easy one, right? The non-qualified dividends. These dividends are largely from like REIT companies and ETFs that have majority of REIT holdings. These dividends are taxed at the normal tax rate, same as like normal income. Qualified dividends are from like your Microsofts, your Apples. These dividends actually have a special tax bracket with a much more lower taxation than your normal working income. In fact, according to NerdWallet, here are the tax brackets for your average working income / REIT dividends. We'll only focus on the married and filing jointly column, but the same applies when it comes to the single. You just have to cut these amounts in half, essentially. The average US income, guys, for married couples, according to Pew, is around $135,000 to $145,000 in 2022. If we take a look at these tax brackets, again, we can see that this lands you in around the 22% tax bracket, which is a lot of money to pay in taxes. Remember that this applies to working income and non-qualified dividends. When it comes to qualified dividends, however, they follow a different tax bracket, which is right here. Looking at the NerdWallet, once again, we can see that the dividends for married filing jointly with the same income as before is taxed at 15%, which is much less than that of active income. Now, for all of those of you saying, you see, Paul is right, you do get taxed twice. The dividends get taxed at the company level, and then they get taxed at 15% for you. However, though, let's take a closer look at active income. According to Bamboo HR, employer and employees pay payroll tax, which are used to fund things like Social Security, Medicare, federal and state unemployment. And, quote, both employers and employees are responsible for paying these taxes. For example, both employer and employees pay Social Security tax, which is at 6.2%, basically Employer pays half, employee pays half, which means this 6.2 is actually 12.4%. Medicare totals 2.9%, and in the case of unemployment tax, the employer pays 6%, only the employer pays 6%. And the state unemployment, it varies state per state. So when you get your paycheck, your employer and yourself has already been taxed doubled, tripled, and even quadrupled. This is also only for payroll tax. This does not include the income tax. That is something completely different, which we just took a look at when it came to NerdWallet's brackets. So as you can see, basic active income is taxed much more than dividend income. Now, Paul's main argument isn't for active working income, but instead he says this.
Let me explain the benefits of the repurchasing of shares to increase your ownership as a better way of giving back to investors than sitting there and paying out dividends. Let's go back to that example. A company makes $1 billion a year, and we're going to pay 15 PE for it. That makes it a $15 billion company. All right, great. Now, let's say they have 1 billion shares outstanding. That means the price of each share is $15 per share. Very simple. $1 billion in profit, 15 times multiple, $15 billion value for the company, divided by 1 billion shares is $15 per share. Okay, year one, they make $1 billion. They're going to buy back all that money and buy back shares. So $1 billion divided by 15, they're going to buy back 66 million shares. Let's just round it to 65 million shares. Okay, 65 million shares. And let's say they do this, let's just skip ahead. Let's say they do this for 10 years. They take every single dollar and it's always selling for $15 a share. Make it very simple. In 10 years, they've bought back $10 billion in shares. So now they've bought back $10 billion worth of shares divided by $15 per share. How many shares they bought back? 666 million. So they went from 1 billion shares minus 666 to 334 million shares. But guys, remember, they made $1 billion. $1 billion that year divided by 334 million shares is $3 per share. Times a 15 multiple, it's $45 per share in value now. Remember our first example when they paid out all the money in dividends? This is how it's better to buy back the shares. Now your shares are worth $45 per share because your $3 in profit, you're splitting the number of shares up that are splitting the profit. That's how you can, guess what? This is all tax-free.
Here he is 100% correct in the share buybacks. Remember, when you buy a ticker, guys, you are not buying a ticker. You are buying a company. Therefore, you are the owner of that company. And the more shares they buy back, the bigger piece of the pie you own. And as a result, this should raise the overall stock value. The issue with this is that this gain is a paper-only kind of gain. And if you want to see this benefit of this gain, you have to sell, causing a taxable event, which results in you paying taxes, either long-term or short-term, depending on how long you hold that security. However, for all intents and purposes, we're going to assume long-term, which is the same tax bracket as qualified dividends. For all of those of you Hawkeye viewers, you're probably saying, wait a minute, if a company gets taxed by issuing a dividend, and even though your overall tax bracket for that dividend is lower, that dividend is still being taxed doubled compared to just waiting for shares to grow. Therefore, it is better to wait and sell shares to make that cash. Now, while this is correct, guys, there are two main factors that you're missing when it comes to this. Number one, market forces. As I stated before, these gains are paper gains. And while it can be great to see your portfolio go up, it is not guaranteed to go up forever. If and when markets decide to fall, they are not guaranteed to recover instantaneously like they did in 2020 and in 2022. Looking at the 2000 crash, right, the dot-com bubble, it took the S&P 500 7 years to recover, just to fall once again in 2008 and to fully recover back in 2013. If you were close to retiring and markets fell, you could not sell off your portfolio and retire. The second factor, it is that assuming that no crash happens, right? No crash happens, and you do sell your portfolio, your overall amount you use to pay for your life decreases in accordance to how much you have left while a percentage remains the same. For example, if you sell your stocks and they are worth, let's just say $1 million to keep everything somewhat simple. If you use 8% of this $1 million, meaning $80,000 per year, the second year you will have $80,000 less off of that $1 million. Therefore, the overall amount that you can take out that year is not $80,000, it is $73,600, and it will continue to fall as the years pass. Now, here's the thing. If you take a look at this from a qualified dividend perspective, there is much less risk for both of these to occur. In the first one, if the markets fall and they do not recover, assuming that the company's fundamentals remain solid, it does not matter if you can't sell since you are not getting a stream of income. And then in the second option, you will constantly have an income stream, so there is no fear of your principal decreasing. While I do understand that dividends aren't 100%, and companies can cut / suspend it. Just take a look at any airline in 2020, Disney and Intel within these past couple years. The odds of them doing this, if they've already weathered major downfalls before, isn't likely, since they have proven that they are able to manage their cash flows correctly. For example, looking at the company T. Rowe Price, they have paid out and increased this dividend for 36 consecutive years. This means since 1986, they have paid out this dividend and continuously increased it. And while past returns are no guarantee of future returns, T. Rowe has shown that they have been able to weather the dot-com crash of 2000, the real estate crash of 07 and 08, and COVID of 2020, and any small correction that happened in between. So odds are that any issues we may have, they'll probably be able to continue paying out this dividend. Again, not 100%. However, it is very likely that they will be able to continue to pay out this dividend. So while I do agree with Paul in that companies should pay a dividend if their free cash flow allows it, I strongly disagree with the statement that they are tax inefficient by everything I just mentioned. There is a lot more that I can go into through regarding dividends that I do plan to do in a future video. So if you would like to see that future video and all of our fundamental analysis videos, technical analysis videos, live streams, etc., make sure to like, subscribe, comment, guys. It really does help here with the algorithm on YouTube. And of course, no jab at them. I do like them, guys. I absolutely do like them. So no jab at them. And if they do manage to see this video, well, then I would love to have a conversation, see what we can actually learn from each other. So with that said, guys, thank you so much for watching. Again, their raw video is linked in the description below. Please make sure to check it out just so that way you get their full context. So with that said, peace out, and we will see you all next time.